and others. So it's not necessarily a purely military document.
Interesting. So you moved where you could get to it on a regular basis. Are you doing this like 5 days a week or 4 days a week? How many days a week are you investigating these documents?
Well, time management's a problem, and I'm always trying to come up with a better way to do it. But right now, Gary, I've got 8 boxes of documents to go through, and like I said, I just finished going through one, and I'm trying to set up my work pattern so that I do a box, and then I do some personal business, and then I do some other things, and then I go back and I work another box, because it's taking me anywhere from 1 to 2 weeks to work through a box of documents. And the reason for that is, for one thing, I'm reviewing the documents, but then I'm also creating an inventory, and then I'm also photographing certain documents that are interesting to me, because I have to send the documents back to Mr. Wood. They're his properties. I don't get to keep them forever. And the only way I'm going to get through this is if I work the boxes regularly, diligently, and then send them back to him as I finish them.
Interesting. Now,
and being retired, I could work in theory 7 days a week, even though it doesn't work out that way, because I've got some other things going on in my life too.
I don't know. Be a talk show host, Tom, and you'll find out what little time you have for anything else. My wife the other day started lecturing me. She goes, I come home from work. I don't see you. I see you for 10 minutes before I go to work. I'm in the studio from 9 o'clock in the morning, on the average, maybe up to about 1 o'clock in the morning. And it's like 7 days a week. And I tell you, I know what you're going through. I know what I'm going through. But, you want to prove something. You want to accomplish something. But I tell you what, it really wrecks your life. Your social life.
Yeah, well, I've got a little bit of a social life, and I have church, and then I have the MUFON groups. I've got the Maryland MUFON group that I visited with last weekend, and then I have the Virginia MUFON group that I'm going to actually speak at this Sunday and talk a little bit about MJ12 and things that I've been doing and some of the things I've been telling you. So I've got a little bit of a social life, but really, if I get into too much social stuff, that's time that I'm not spending on my project. And I'm doing this because I want to, Gary. I love this. This is what I do. This is what I want to do. And in some ways, it's kind of a burden, because in some ways there are other things I'd like to do too, and I'd like to be doing that as well. But this is what I want to do, and I'm meant to do.
Well, I agree. Everything that you say. Like my show, a lot of people will sit there, Tom, and say, why do you cover UFOs, abductions, MUFON, and all this stuff more than anything else in the paranormal? And I you know why? Because I want to know. I want to know what's going on. I feel like we're being deceived on a daily basis out there, both by the government, and I'll tell you, there's a whole bunch of disinformation that just keeps flooding the media. And it's frustrating because interview people, it's really hard to, you bring somebody on, and I'll tell you what, sometimes you cringe when they start telling you their story.
Yes. And there's so much of it going on out there, Gary. People seeing things, and people experiencing things, and people being abducted, and all that. And it's really, when you look at the totality of it, it's almost overwhelming in a way. But at the same time, it's been going on a long time, the modern UFO field since 1945. And as a UFO enthusiast, I'm used to that. So I have a certain amount of patience, I feel, and I have a certain amount of tolerance for ambiguity. This is a field where you don't get ready answers. You don't get black and white answers to our problems. We just have to keep working at it, and keep investigating and learning.
Well, if we don't, we're not going to find out anything. A guest I had on the other night, he was, he wrote a book, and it was supposed to be about, aliens and stuff like that. Well, I had him on the show, and his idea, aliens are demons from Satan. And that UFOs, they're not UFOs. They're, again, demons from hell. And I tell you what, I listened to the guy for an hour and a half. Everybody has their own point of view. I'm not going to sit there and contradict him. But I tell you, this is how the ufology field has really gotten. You have like 3 different camps here. And it's really, you got to tread on water. You got people that go out and get videos every single day or once a week of UFOs. Then you got these other people say they can point at a UFO and it'll move whichever way they move their finger. Then the other group is they're here to serve man, and they're loving. I just want to know what's going on. That's all I care about.
Well, unfortunately, that's not an easy answer to find, because I think there are at least several groups, and that we have some that may be somewhat positive toward us. We have some, I think, that are neutral. They're just doing their own thing, and there may be one or more that are really negative. So it's really kind of a mixed bag, and I don't think that there are any simple answers to it. Also, assuming that they have superior technology, it's very difficult for us to get at them. We can't control it. They have the upper hand. And I think that's why so much of the time that we're left in the dark, we're left wondering, what's really going on here.
Well, I think the government is purposely not keeping us informed, or they don't want us to know. Now, I want to go back to Eisenhower. The report that you went over and read. Can you basically explain to some of the younger listeners what was discussed in that report that you can just pull out of your memory?
Well, it's based on Roswell, and the question is if Roswell occurred like we think that it may have, being some kind of an anomalous event, namely a crashed saucer. UFO crash retrieval, along with retrieval of bodies and possibly one live alien. It's a recap of that as a briefing to President Eisenhower. Now, the document is dated November 18, 1952, and it was meant to be a briefing for President Eisenhower, and the briefing paper was allegedly written by Rear Admiral Hillenkoetter, and it explained that a saucer had been recovered, that bodies had been recovered, and a special committee had been formed. The special committee was called Majestic 12, or MJ12 for short. And it was a list of some top people in the military, some top scientists, and a couple of government people that were elite and that were involved or would be involved in the Truman administration up to that point. So there's also a list of appendices, of attachments with the report that are not included with the document, but there is that list. And there's also what's known as the Truman-Forrestal memo, which is allegedly a memo from President Truman authorizing the formation of Majestic 12.
Interesting. Now, going back to Eisenhower, there's all these rumors, okay, which I have not really been able to prove one way or another, that supposedly Eisenhower met with a representative, an alien. What do you feel about that? Do you think it actually ever happened, or do you think it's just, folklore? Or
There are 2 tracks to that legend. One is that Eisenhower did meet with, or have one or more meetings with one or more of these alien groups. The other idea is that, and this is something that has been claimed by Richard Doty in a number of interviews, but that after the Roswell crash, one of the aliens survived, and the military U.S. government was able to establish at least a crude form of communication with him. And in that process, they were able to get a communication device going so that the alien could make contact with his home planet. And they made arrangements for this alien group to come back to Earth and pick up their dead, and then exchange an American team and take that American team to their home planet, which is called Serpo in that legend, and that's where we get the Serpo story. So there's one track where Eisenhower, supposedly meets aliens either at Edwards Air Force Base or at Holloman Air Force Base, the Holloman landing. And then there's this other story of the Serpo side of it. So there's just enough there to keep everybody thoroughly confused.
Oh, yeah. I mean, because, a lot of people I've had on the show talk about it said basically that Eisenhower met with these aliens and they shared technology with our military in exchange for a whole bunch of weird stuff. Rumor has it that, they could kidnap humans in exchange for, giving us technology. But yet I have not found any documents or anything to substantiate that.
No, and I don't think we will, because if they do exist, we can't get to it. And you would naturally think that would be some of the most classified information that the government has, if there are such agreements or outlines or treaties or anything like that. And it's a very wild, it's a wild and crazy idea, and those rumors came out in the 1980s during this whole period that William Moore and Jamie Chandray and company and the aviary were making these contacts and trying to get to the bottom of the UFO problem. And at the same time, Paul Benowitz and the Paul Benowitz affair, Paul Benowitz was putting out his version, Project Beta, of what he thought was going on. And you had this character by the name of Bill Cooper really promulgating a lot of these rumors, the treaties with the aliens and the agreements that the U.S. government had between the Earth and this alien civilization, and they would trade technology in exchange for the aliens being able to abduct humans.
Okay, now, Tom,
keep a list and all this. Yes, sir.
We need to take a break. When we come back from break, can you talk a little bit about what these rumors were, what was spread? Because I have people constantly contacting me that are positive that the government did make some type of agreement. I just want to, you know more about this than I do. Maybe we can clear a little bit up or make it where people understand and let them make a decision if it was a hoax that was going on by a couple individuals to sell a book or whatever. We'll be back with Tom Whitmore right after these breaks. You're listening to Night Dreams Talk Radio After Dark. I'm Gary. We'll be right back.
Night Dreams Talk Radio After Dark wants to give a big shout out to all the truckers that listen to our show.
Deep from my underground compound in beautiful Gig Harbor, you're tuned in to Night Dreams Talk Radio. Good evening or morning, depending on your time zone. Tonight, our guest is Tom Whitmore. We're going to be talking about, UFOs. MJ12. And more. Get yourself a nice cup of Java. Maybe get warm but next to that fireplace. And we're going to take you for a ride through the universe on Night Dreams Talk Radio.
Night Dreams Talk Radio After Dark wants to give a big